Hey, folks, Roland Martin here. Coming up next on Roland Martin Unfiltered live from Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, 24 hours before folks go to the poll. Actually, 12 hours before folks go to the polls all across the country, opening nationwide. Huge races. We're here in Atlanta for a prayer rally taking place here. Georgia, of course, folks are excited and focused on Stacey Abrams running against Brian Kemp. And speaking of Brian Kemp, we'll talk about the nasty thing that he has now done the day before the election, now alleging without any facts whatsoever voter fraud on the part of Democrats. He's been blasted by Stacey Abrams. We'll explain to you exactly what is going on. Also, huge races all across the country taking place here in Florida with Andrew Gillum, Ben Jealous in Maryland. Of course, we have constitutional amendments on the ballot as well. And so we'll be breaking down a lot of those issues, including marijuana that's also on the ballot. Also, we have the racist Trump ad about immigration banned by several television networks. We'll tell you exactly who is banning those. And also, in 40 states, you do know your boss must give you time off to vote. We'll tell you exactly what those states are. Also, in Maryland, the race for Attorney General has been heating up. Billions are at stake for HBCUs. We'll be talking to the Democrat who is trying to keep his job and get answers from him as to whether or not HBCUs in Maryland are going to finally get their money. Folks, it's time to bring the funk. Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funky, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin.
All right, folks, glad to have all of you here. We are broadcasting live from Ebenezer Baptist Church here in Atlanta, where so much of the attention is focused on the race for governor, Stacey Abrams, against Secretary of State Brian Kemp. Again, as you can see, folks are already been lining up here to participate in this prayer rally focusing on this election. Doors open at 6. This is going to start actually at 7 p.m. We will be live streaming this prayer rally on Roland Martin Unfiltered. So as soon as this show is over, we'll be going live to the sanctuary here at Ebenezer Baptist Church. Again, huge elections taking place. The latest polling shows an absolute dead heat between Stacey Abrams and Brian Kemp here in Georgia. Folks have been registering folks, taking them to the polls. People are ready to go out with buses and vans tomorrow, carpools as well, to take folks to the polls all across Georgia. Huge things are at stake here. In addition to that race, there's so many other initiatives on ballots in North Carolina, in Florida. We'll get to a lot of those as well. Right now, though, I want to talk to the senior pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church, Dr. Raphael Warnock. And Doc, always good to see you. We fully expect a full house here. I mean, lots of attention. The nation is watching Georgia.
Absolutely. We have that song, Georgia on My Mind. It seems like Georgia's on everybody's mind right about now. This is a historic election. There's a chance to make history. I think more importantly, there's a chance to make a difference. We've got 500,000 people in this state who need Medicaid, and they could have Medicaid if we simply had a governor and a legislature that would say, yes, a lot is on the line, and we are waiting, well, not waiting to see what will happen. We've got to continue to press the point so that people show up to the polls.
When we look at across this country, early voting has been blowing up in Florida, in Texas. In Texas, in fact, they show in Harris County alone that more people have voted early than the entire number who voted in 2014. Have you seen that same level of enthusiasm voting early here in Georgia?
Oh, absolutely we have. There is definitely excitement in the air. That's being manifested in the turnout in early voting. We saw on the very first day of early voting, I think the turnout was about 3 times what it was the first day of early voting in 2016. So great and massive turnout, but we need that to continue to the very end. People need to show up, turn up, turn out.
And obviously, one of the things that Stacey Abrams has done with her Georgia Voter Project, by registering 300,000 people, I mean, she has gone to every county, gone to rural Georgia, versus what other Democrats did, pretty much ignore rural Georgia, ceded that ground to Republicans. She's competing for those votes with Brian Kemp. That many people are saying and I also believe, a very smart strategy, but not allowing him free reign to roll up huge vote totals in those areas.
Yeah, I'm chair of the New Georgia Project, and I was with her in this effort from the beginning. As you point out, we have registered nearly 300,000 new people of color, and certainly we've been in a fight with the Secretary of State, who happens to be running for governor. He's serving both as player on the field and umpire. I mean, Little League players know that you can't be the player and the umpire. And so we'll be watching this race very, very closely. We have filed lawsuits against him. But part of the answer to rapid voter suppression is massive voter mobilization. We need people to turn out. And we're standing here at Ebenezer Baptist Church. This is the home church of Martin Luther King Jr., who preached a famous message 6 years before the March on Washington. In that very site, he gave a speech called "Give Us the Ballot." And he said, if you give us the ballot, we will elect governors in the South who have not only felt the tang of the human, but the glow of the divine, that we would transform the South if we have the power of the ballot. And so that's really what's at stake, the soul of our democracy, the character of our country, the question of whether or not we are a nation where everyone has access to the ballot.
What do you say to those folks, even some African Americans, who say, look, I just don't see how this makes any difference whatsoever. My vote doesn't count, so I'm not going to waste my time.
Our adversaries are very clear about the power of our ballot. That's why they have 41 distinct ways in which they are engaged in voter suppression. If the vote really did make a difference, people wouldn't be working so hard to ensure that people of color, that women, that young people don't have access, that their access to the ballot will somehow be compromised in some way. So they're working very hard to make sure you don't show up. There must be some power in the ballot.
All right. Reverend Warnock, always good to see you, and look forward to having this here for the folks looking forward to it. Who are some of the folks who are going to be participating in this rally?
Listen, tonight we have the civil rights movement, as it were, classically embodied in the likes of Jesse Jackson and John Lewis, but we also have some younger voices. My friend Reverend Tracy Blackman, who heads the Justice Ministry of the United Church of Christ. We've got outstanding celebrity artists who know that that somebody fought for them to have a voice. So Byron Cage will be here, Dottie Peoples will be here, Angie Stone will be here. We've got soul, neo-soul, and gospel. It all comes from the same root.
We're certainly looking forward to it, and we'll be live streaming on Roland Martin Unfiltered. So thanks a bunch.
Good to see you, brother.
Always.
All right.
Thanks a bunch. As I said, folks, we are here at Ebenezer Baptist Church, looking forward to this particular rally. So much attention is focused on this race in Georgia, and what Brian Kemp doing, folks, is utterly shameful. So what he has now done, he is now alleging that he wants the FBI to come in to investigate Democrats in Georgia, saying that they somehow were participating in cyber crimes. Here's the problem. There's no evidence. He literally presented no evidence. He says he has it, but he hasn't presented any. He was blasted by Stacey Abrams for actually making that kind of comment. I think, guys, we have the video of that. All right, so again, earlier today, Stacey Abrams took off against Brian Kemp for making that allegation of Democrats somehow trying to rig this election. This is the guy who is the Secretary of State, and what he has been doing, frankly, is dead wrong. Former President Jimmy Carter said he should have resigned like the previous Secretaries of State, but by trying to also be over the election. Before I go to my next story, I want to do this here. I'm going to grab a couple of people here and just sort of get their thoughts, see what I hear. Ma'am, how you doing? Just step right on over. How you doing? So what brings you out here?
Rallying folks to vote, especially young folks.
And what do you hope they get out of this?
Well, essentially, we need to understand the importance of voting My concern really are the young millennial folks, because I feel like our demographic, older, especially African-American male, females, we show up to vote. My concern are the young people.
Okay. All right, then. Well, I certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot. All right, then. And again, folks, we have people who are already lining up here to try to get into this sanctuary. We've got folks who are bringing we got folks who are bringing their children. Guys, talk to me again. I missed that. So we got folks again we got folks here going again who have their children with them. They're out here again about looking forward to this particular rally here. All right, folks, let's just give you a sense in terms of what's happening in Georgia. The Secretary of State office announced an all-time early voting record. 2014, 945,507 ballots were cast in the midterm election. Folks, 4 years later in 2018, listen to this. 830,000. That is more than double. That shows you the interest that we have going on here. And, of course, Oprah Winfrey, she was campaigning for Stacey Abrams. And there's a robocall that's been going out around Georgia from an avowed white nationalist. Check this out.
This is the magical Negro, Oprah Winfrey, asking you to make my fellow Negro, Stacey Abrams, the governor of Georgia. Years ago, the Jews who owned the American media saw something in me, the ability to trick dumb white women into thinking I was like them, and to do, read, and think what I told them to. I see that same potential in Stacey Abrams. Where others see a poor man's Aunt Jemima, I see someone white women can be tricked into voting for, especially the fat ones. And so I promise that every single person who votes for Stacey Abrams, you're going to get a new car. So you get a car, and you get a car, and you get a car, and you get a car. Everybody gets a car. And as far as the race to their rights who are in the way, don't worry about them. Like I said in that famous interview in 2013, white racists just have to die. This message paid for by theroadtopower.com.
Trust me, folks, the racists, they are busy during this election. And speaking of racists, Donald Trump, of course, tweeted out an ad many call racist by trying to blame Democrats for allowing an illegal immigrant into the country who actually killed 2 people in New York. Well, the reality is that happened under Republicans as well. Again, we're not going to show you the ad. This is the frame of the ad. CNN has refused to air it. NBC aired it during Sunday Night Football and has now pulled that ad after so many people blasted that. Fox News aired it. They've also now pulled that ad. Facebook ran the ad. They've now pulled it. And, of course, David Duke, he loved the ad. This is no shock whatsoever. I want to go to our panel right now, folks. Joining us in the studio is Eugene Craig, CEO, Eugene Craig Organization, Michael Brown, former vice chair, DNC Finance Committee, Avis Jones DeWeaver, leadership strategist, author of How Exceptional Black Women Lead. Eugene, I want to start with you. When you think about that racist ad that Donald Trump sent out, again, Republicans defended, the Republican National Committee, Ronna McDaniel, she's defended it as well. But the reality is many say that it is the modern-day Willie Horton ad that is racist, that is sick. Anna Navarro said flat out, Donald Trump is an avowed racist for the way he has been campaigning and operating as president.
This is Willie Horton on steroids. I mean, this is like the Super Saiyan Willie Horton ad right here. It's crazy. The thing is this, if I could quote Andrew Gillum, Brian Kemp, may not be racist, but the racists think he's racist, and they're coming out heavy and strong for him. This is an environment that Donald Trump has helped create. This is an environment that the likes of Breitbart and Steve Bannon has helped create. And this is what we're seeing playing out. But it also shows the desperation that, it's not even being veiled or covert with their racism. They're just being upfront with it.
Michael?
Well, you know what? Besides it being absolutely disgusting, what's more concerning, Roland, is that the fact that if these ads did not work, they would not spend money on them and buying all the airtime. The sad part about the sad commentary about our country is some people believe in these ads, like these ads, and frankly follow the lead of these ads. That's really the more problematic thing than just one particular election. Clearly back in 1988, the Willie Horton ad against Michael Dukakis. clearly made a difference, which is, again, back to that sad commentary that ads like this work. I hope that as people get ready to vote tomorrow, clearly there was already early voting, but as people get ready to vote tomorrow, that these ads don't work on folks anymore. Maybe 10 years from now, we'll never see ads like this.
All right, folks, I'm having some audio issues here, so I'm trying to hear everything that you're saying. But I did hear both of you talk about that particular ad. Look, what we're seeing going down to the wire, we have seen the robocalls taking place in Florida as well for Ron DeSantis. And the bottom line, Eugene, Republicans can run from this all they want to, but they have to deal with the fact that racists, white nationalists, have chosen to side with the Republicans over Democrats. There has to be something in the Republican Party that is appealing to white nationalists.
I mean, you're 100% correct. I mean, if you look at the way conservatives these days talk about immigrants, the way that you bring up any type of white male backlash or white male rage, the automatic pivot is to quote unquote black on black crime. You look at how the folk handled Christine Blasey Ford. I mean, there has been a tacit, almost full-fledged checkmark okay given by the official side of government that, hey, it's okay for you to run free. Historically, you're talking dog whistle. You may dance around white nationalism. But with the likes of Donald Trump and Ted Cruz and Steve Bannon and Steve Miller and we can't forget Steve King, who's been doing it for years. I mean, it's out in the open now. It's out in the open, and they don't really care anymore just for it to be in the open.
And even before Roland.
All right, guys, hold tight one second, because I need to fix an audio issue. I can really barely hear any of you talking. So we're going to go to a break right now. When we come back, we're going to show you folks the 40 states where you are allowed to take time off to go vote. We'll do so and come back live to hear Ebenezer Baptist Church. Roland Martin Unfiltered, back in a moment.
I think there's blame on both sides.
There are times when we have to come together and stand up to protect our way of life.
As leaders in our communities, people come to us when they need help.
Now, we need you to do something for us.
We need you to vote. There are politicians that want to make it hard for you to vote because they want to control your life.
Our lives depend on our right to choose.
Our lives depend on getting a 21st century education.
That have jobs that pay a living wage.
Our lives depend on clean air and clean water.
Our lives depend on science and knowing the truth.
We know you will show up. It's time to vote for our next president. For some of you, 2020 can't come soon enough.
I am absolutely a nationalist, and I'm proud of it.
Our lives depend on you voting this November 6th in the midterms.
Vote.
Our lives depend on it.
Election Day on November 6th is fast approaching. The time for action is now. We need to mobilize millions. That's why we're asking you to claim your power, use your networks. Here's what you can do. Register 5 people, volunteer 5 days between now and Election Day. Commit to getting 5 people out to the polls. Together, we can do this. Sigma Gamma Rho, go vote.
Alpha Kappa Alpha, go vote.
Kappa Alpha Psi, go vote.
Omega Psi Phi, go vote.
Phi Beta Sigma, go vote.
Zeta Phi Beta, go vote.
Delta Sigma Theta, go vote.
So you've heard the call, you've heard the challenge. Empower yourselves and our communities. Iota Phi Theta, go vote.
The right to vote is something that our ancestors died for us to have. And in 2018 and beyond, there's nothing more important for us to do than to exercise the truest concept of democracy, and that is the right to vote. So I encourage all of you, regardless of the colors we may wear, to join my colleagues and I, the presidents of the Divine Nine organizations, to encourage everyone to go out and vote and also to take someone else to the polls, because truly all politics is local. The right to vote is something that we must never abandon, and that is why we believe a voteless people is truly a hopeless people.
All right, folks, welcome back to Ebenezer Baptist Church here in Atlanta. Joining me right now, of course, you have seen her on television, of course, longtime star, living single, and now, of course, on Black Lightning. Erica Alexander, what's happening?
What's happening, Roland? You're the hardest working man in media.
Well, you know, somebody got to do it. Somebody got to do it.
You for it, honestly. You're everywhere.
All right, so you got the Reclaiming My Time button with Congresswoman Maxine Waters and, of course, Stacey Abrams as governor.
Yes, absolutely. And I was in Florida for Andrew Gillum 2 days ago, so I'm here. They got to do the hard part. I'm just standing with them.
Yeah, but also the hard part is also the ground game, which is also important. But at the end of the day, if you don't get folks out, you can't win.
No, you can't. And they're doing a great job of doing it. They've got all sorts of good people on the ground. They've got people coming in from Boston helping them. They've got people from Los Angeles. Obviously, there's many celebrities and really wonderful politicians who have blended their name and their power. So the ground game is fierce.
Of course, we're running the interview that we did in L.A., Be Woke Vote, of course.
That's a fantastic interview. I loved it. I was afraid of it, but you know what?
Why were you afraid?
I'm afraid of you.
Me? How are you afraid of me?
You know what? You always ask the hardest questions, but it's not that you're hard. It's just that you're so informative. I want to be as informative as you, but the truth is I just need to relax into it and just let it go.
I tried to tell you, calm down.
You true. You never let anybody fail, so thank you.
No, I would jack up some people. Sheriff David Clark.
You know I watch.
Candace Owens.
I watch all those commentaries. You know what I'm saying? They're hysterical to me, but really, you're telling the truth, and I think it's amazing that a lot of the people go around and they're never really called on their stuff, but you call them on it. So.
Yeah, no, I can't have that. So I got to ask you this here. I mean, why? Look, there are a lot of people who, they might send a tweet out, stuff along those lines, but why are you so engaged in politics?
Well, we talked about this a little bit before, but I always say, my father both my parents were orphans. My father was an itinerant preacher. My mother's a social worker. He passed away before I was doing Living Single. I really am. I lived the first 11 years of my life in a hotel called Starlight off of Route 66. If I'm here at all in media or anything that people see in their faces, movies or television, it's because people sacrificed and gave me an opportunity. So I feel like it's an extension of them and what they would do if they had the opportunity. I'm just here trying to also help people who are my friends, who've been kind to me, and I see that they're doing something hard. What I do on sets, that's all fake and that's fiction, but this is real and it actually affects my life, so I'm happy to help.
All right, we're certainly glad to see you here. We're looking forward to this rally tonight.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here, Roland, because wherever you're at is where it's at.
You know this. I appreciate it.
Love you.
All right, thanks a lot, much, darling. All right, folks, again, we're here at Ebenezer Baptist Church. We're also waiting on Derrick Johnson. Of course, he is the CEO of the NAACP, who was on his way as well. He'll be speaking here. Jim Wallace, sojourners, will also be here. And also Reverend Rob Lee, I saw him here. You might remember he is the descendant of General Robert E. Lee, and he, of course, was a pastor of that church in North Carolina. And when he spoke at the VH1, I think it was the VH1 Music Awards, or one of those award shows, they really got upset with him because he called out racism and white supremacy, and he ended up leaving as the pastor of that church. And so we're going to try to grab him in a second. I'll be sure to let Tanisha here know that I'm looking to reach Reverend Rob Lee. Also, folks, I talked about, of course, in terms of what is happening with a lot of these races out here. Let's go to what's going on with some of these races, which is unbelievable. One of the races, and first of all, again, Jay, say it again. So, folks, normally you're going. This shows how we'll. Go ahead. Gotcha. All right, so here's the deal, folks. All right, so all across this country, we're having just some slight audio issues, and so just bear with us. All across the country, folks are going to be voting tomorrow. Many folks may not realize in their states, they require employers to give you time off. And so I want us to pull that graphic up, please, right now, so we can show you there are 40 states across the country where you are able to have time off to go vote. And some friends of mine were hitting me, and they were saying, look, I got 2 or 3 hours tomorrow for me to go out and vote. And so, again, look at all the states on the screen. 40 states where they are required to give you time off to vote. Only 10 states do not have this time off to vote requirement. No, so again, none of you. So those 10 states you're seeing right now, those are the states where where employers don't have to give you time off to vote. And so What the hell are y'all 10 states doing? Go ahead and do this. First of all, voting should actually be a national holiday. It makes no sense that even we have it on Tuesday. It should be actually on a weekend. But you know, and I don't know why we're just so stuck on the first Tuesday in November. We should be able to change it. So again, there's no excuse for you not to be able to go vote in those places. Again, every state. Now, if you don't see your state, remember you're one of the 40. So only 10 that don't allow you to do so. All right, folks, let's go into our next. Matter of fact, I want to go to my panel here. And Michael, I want to go to you on this hill. This is one thing. Like, I don't understand why we're still stuck on this whole idea of voting on a Tuesday in November. What the hell's wrong with the first Saturday in November as opposed to the first Tuesday?
Well, I'm not sure about the constitutional issue with that, Roland, but from my standpoint, Tuesday then should be the national holiday. It shouldn't matter what day of the week it is, as long as it's a day off for everyone. That gives everyone an opportunity to vote. So what if you also run errands on that day off? The point is you need to vote, and we should make it as easy as possible for people to vote, not as difficult as possible, as obviously we're seeing during this election cycle with the suppression of votes.
Avis?
I absolutely agree. The bottom line is that there is a specific there's a specific movement, quite frankly, to make it more difficult for people to vote. And this is not something that's just happened. I mean, over the past 5 years, 1,000 polling places across the country have been closed down. And even in this year alone, we've had 99 bills introduced in about 30 different states across the nation that are specifically meant to make it more difficult to vote. So instead of moving towards a holiday, which I agree, we need to have a national holiday so that more people can vote, it seems as if we have a political party, quite frankly, that is moving directly in the opposite direction.
And Eugene, first of all, there's no constitutional requirement for the election to be on Tuesday. It says that Congress sets election day, so they can change it.
They can change it. That was my initial thought. It was that it was a constitutional requirement, but I believe my history calls correctly. I believe our presidential elections were previously in the month of March.
March 4th.
March 4th, yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, it could be changed and, change it and make it a national holiday. A couple votes, the signature from the president, it's a done deal.
All right, folks, we'll go to our next story here. Of course, we've been talking about different races, and there are a lot of attorney general races all across the country. African Americans running for attorney general in New York, running in Florida, running in a number of different places. In Illinois, you got 2 African Americans running, 1 Republican as well as 1 Democrat. And so we're watching those races, but also the one taking place in Maryland. Of course, we previously had Craig Wolf, who was Republican running for attorney general on the Republican side. Brian Frost is the incumbent Maryland Attorney General, and one of the issues that we have been focused on when it comes to this race relates to HBCUs, the long-going lawsuit that has been happening in Maryland as relates to the funding of HBCUs, duplicate programming, of course, seeking some $2 billion. So joining us is Brian Frost. Brian, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me, Roland.
So here's the question. We have seen these HBCUs fighting Maryland constantly, over and over and over again. There was a trial, federal judge who ruled. The question is, when is Maryland going to do the right thing and fully fund these HBCUs, the $2 billion they are owed, and not this $100 million settlement that was thrown out? What are you going to do as Attorney General?
Well, let me say this. I was in the Maryland Senate for many years before I became Attorney General, and when I was a senator, I supported additional funding for HBCUs. There were many controversial bills. I supported the funding. I supported special programs for them so that they could have a competitive advantage. But once I was elected Attorney General, I inherited this lawsuit, and while I've tried to settle it, I've been unsuccessful. And the reason is, it's up to the governor to decide whether he's going to put money on the table, whether he's going to put programming on the table, and it is by the Constitution the Attorney General's job to defend the lawsuit. So I have defended the lawsuit.
Well, the job is to defend the lawsuit, but we saw this with Attorney General Eric Holder. There are lawsuits you can choose not to defend. If you're the leading law enforcement official in Maryland, can you not say, folks, the judge has ruled in this case. As Attorney General, I made a decision that we are not going to appeal this particular lawsuit?
you really can't. If the governor, if the administration says we want a defense, it's the Attorney General's obligation to provide it. And I may not like what they do, I may not like their argument, but if it's constitutional, the Attorney General's job is to defend the state. Look, we defend.
Okay, hold on. I need you to explain that. Can you explain that? Can you explain that for me? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You are the elected official.
That's
the
right.
governor is the elected official. So do you work for the people or do you work for the governor?
I'm independently elected of the governor, but the governor is the one who has the ability to settle the lawsuit. In terms of appeal, when the administration instructs me to appeal, unless I believe that the decision is unconstitutional, I have an obligation to give them the defense that they ask for. And we defend state employees. They get into car accidents, they get into all kinds of trouble, and it's the Attorney General's job to defend them and the state when it gets sued.
So have you told the governor, this is simple. These universities are owed this money. That $2 billion, we should not be appealing this lawsuit. So is it your opinion that Maryland should not be appealing this lawsuit and that those HBCUs are owed the $2 billion they have been seeking for far too long?
Look, I can't discuss something that I've advised the governor. But I can say this, I've tried very hard to settle it, and I can't get either party to be in the same place at the same time. There's not a $2 billion judgment against the state. What the judge ruled was that she was going to appoint a special master, and the special master was going to oversee the education system with respect to funding of HBCUs and with respect to programming for HBCUs and other universities. And nobody knows what the special master will rule because there's been no special master appointed, and nobody knows how much it will cost. But the plaintiffs in the case are asking for more than $1 billion.
Yes, they're asking for more than $1 billion, and the question again comes, Democrats in Maryland. Maryland is a Democratic state, even though the governor is Republican.
Right.
So the question is, black folks there have been wanting to see this resolved. These are historically black colleges and universities that are critically important. And what I don't understand is why Democrats dragging their feet. If they want black votes, why don't they simply provide the proper funding to these HBCUs and to give them the remedy which was needed when they actually had these programs that were then duplicated at predominantly white institutions and also hurt these HBCUs. I don't understand why we're going back and forth on this. This is not that hard.
Well, as I said, when I was in the Senate, I supported that legislation, and the General Assembly still has the ability to do that, but they've got to get it past the governor too. And I'm not a policymaker in this role. Now, I fight for policies. I mean, for example, I've fought Maryland's cash bail system and got it reformed. It's something that predominantly affects minorities, and especially African Americans. But and this is something that my opponent attacks me for. But we had a system that was keeping thousands of people in jail every year because they were poor. And I persuaded the Court of Appeals to change that rule. I also am the first Attorney General in the United States to issue guidelines for every law enforcement agency in the state prohibiting discriminatory profiling based on race, ethnicity, nationality, religion. My administration has tried hard within the bounds of what we are required to do to stamp out discrimination, to give assistance to folks who are feeling the brunt of discrimination. And with respect to HBCUs, I've tried very hard to settle the case, but without success.
Well, look, I tell you what, we're going to be looking for this to be dealt with because I have covered the underfunding of HBCUs all across this country. I remember when Alvin Chambliss, he led the case against Mississippi, and we were seeing what has happened in Texas and North Carolina and some of the other places. And these HBCUs have been underfunded from the moment they were created. And I would think that if Democrats keep depending upon black voters, and I keep making the point, black folks are not going to be political sharecroppers for Democrats. Democrats in Maryland should stand up and properly fund these HBCUs. And the settlement should be what they're asking, not anything less. Brian Frosch, final comment.
Well, look, as I said, I have fought for the HBCUs as a legislator. I'm doing my job as the Attorney General. I have fought against cash bail that discriminates against poor people. I've fought against racial profiling, and I'm going to continue to do everything I possibly can to resolve this lawsuit. I guess it's important to note that the judge found that the HBCUs in Maryland were not underfunded. She said that there has been program duplication that has harmed the HBCUs, and the special master is supposed to figure out a way in which the HBCUs programs are not unnecessarily duplicated.
And of course, that duplication has hurt those HBCUs, yes, because had there not been duplication, those students would have been going to those HBCUs, and the resources would have been going to those HBCUs and not going to predominantly white institutions.
Yes, that's the plaintiff's argument, and they won in the trial court.
Yeah, and they're absolutely right. Brian Frost, we appreciate it. Thanks a bunch. We will certainly be watching to see what takes place tomorrow night after the election.
Thank you.
All right, folks. Of course, Donald Trump, he's gotten different coaches out there fighting on his behalf, including Bobby Knight and Bobby Bowden, the former coach of the Florida State who won the national championship. But I don't know what the hell Bobby Bowden was drinking because he spoke at a Trump rally and said this.
See if you think this is true. Trump plus God, all it is a majority.
You drink Eugene Craig. What the? He gonna make me cuss in church.
Make me cuss on set. The madness. This is what you see. I mean, look, the religious right. You know, they've absconded their values, the things they believe in. You know, the things they profess for the last 40, 50 years. You know, Trump is now dragging out all these college basketball and football coaches and whatnot. That are white cultural icons, and this is what we get. I mean, this is the equivalent of when somebody should shut up and coach, rather than jump on stage and just let whatever first thing come to their mind spew out.
Michael, really? Trump plus God equals the majority? Okay, I think Bobby Bowden should be in the concussion protocol program.
You know what's probably pretty troubling about the whole statement? He probably didn't write it, but the problem is he said it. Yeah. And whether he wrote it, said it, doesn't really matter. If he's ever at another football program again, I can't imagine him doing very well in recruiting because people aren't going to want to go to a school with a man that thinks like that. So it's a shame, but ever since the early morning in November, when we found out who the next president was going to be, all of this stuff just opened up. Doors have opened. Floodgates have opened. There are no more dog whistles. They're bullhorns. Anytime David Duke can get on Twitter and praise a president, you know something's wrong.
Mm-hmm. Hear, hear.
Avis, again, I see these white conservative evangelicals, and they truly lost their mind. I guess grab the vagina. I guess him cussing folks out, talking about women. I guess all of those things don't have anything to do with morality. And I guess Bobby Bowden is saying, "Oh, God approves of it all."
Tell me about it. I mean, and how many baby mamas does he have? I mean, come on, let's just get real, okay? So, yeah, I lose count. Maybe more. That's true. See, here's the thing. What's really interesting to me is that a lot of his fan base, they do seem to almost worship him. So when I hear a statement like that, in some way, it doesn't seem too far from how they appear to think. The way that they tend to hang on every word, believe everything out of his mouth, even when it is a million miles away from being factual, overlook all of those things that we know are a gazillion miles away from what most people practice when it comes to Christianity, but tend to overlook that. And they have this sort of almost Jim Jones level of worship for him. It is really scary to see fanatical worship, almost like he's a cult leader. So when you see how he is elevated by those people who follow him just blindly in the way that they do, statements like that, quite frankly, don't even surprise me.
All right, then. Going to go to a break right now. When we come back, we're going to have more from Ebenezer Baptist Church, where the prayer rally is taking place, of course, here, getting focus on voting tomorrow on Tuesday, November 6th. And we come back, we'll be chatting with Byron Cage and also talking about, of course, marijuana on the ballot. I wonder what Byron thinks about that. We'll be talking about that next, right here, Roland Martin Unfiltered. Back in a moment.
We don't make you do that.
I know we are supposed to mind our business, especially when it comes to grown folks' business, but this is our business too. After all, it may impact me more than it'll impact you. Right now, my votes are limited to things like pizza or spaghetti for dinner. But you got a chance. You get to choose people who will impact healthcare, education, prison reform, immigration, women's rights, LGBTQ rights, my rights. The list goes on. Not to mention a chance to make history with Stacey Abrams, Andrew Gillum, Antonio Delgado, Vangelis, and more. A chance! That's all we asking for. So do it for the kids. The same way Dr. King, John Lewis, Fannie Lou Hamer, James Baldwin, Maxine Waters, and so many others did. Put your listening ears on. Vote. Vote. V-O-T-E. Vote. For me. Okay.
And on the road all day, going all over Harris County. And of course, with all these
wonderful women.
All these crazy people running the show. They've been a little extra. We got that one back there who runs for city council next year, Renee. She's extra too. And so, folks, I don't care what city you're in, what county you're in. You got to vote on Tuesday. Definitely in Harris County and Houston. No complaining, no whining, don't care. You better do your part and actually cast your ballot. All right? From the most important place in 3rd Ward, French's on Scott Street. Holler at y'all later.
Bye.
Yeah, this was Rolling with Roland.
Rolling with Roland.
All right, folks, again, that was, of course, I was in Houston over the weekend with the judges there, the sisters who are running for a judge in Harris County. 19 black women running for judges, so we hit about 12 different locations. And so there's going to be lots more video we'll share with you later on, especially when I busted the Top Ladies of Distinction meeting. Should have seen me roll up in there. They weren't expecting that, so I can't wait to see that video as well. But before we go to, of course, our next interview, here's, of course, something from one of our partners. Of course, you heard me talk about our friends at Transatlantic Real Estate who created a unique investment opportunity that you have to let sink in for a second, and that is legal marijuana and crowdfunding. Right now, the legal marijuana movement continues, of course, and it's also on the ballot in several states. Now, what folks have to understand when it comes to the issue of investing in that, this is a multi-billion-dollar industry. And so that means that, of course, folks will be getting involved in that. And why not people of color? Typically, it takes millions, if not billions, to invest in the legal marijuana industry, and it can be pretty risky getting started. However, Transatlantic Real Estate is different. What they do is they buy the land that supports marijuana growing operations and lease it to licensed, high-paying tenants. Now, again, what that means is being a landlord to a licensed marijuana farm. Now, in this booming industry, of course, you would rather be an owner than somebody who is renting. You can get started for as little as $300 up to $10,000. The best part, they're using crowdfunding to make it easy to get in before they take the company public. So the key is this here. I want you to go to marijuanastock.org. That's marijuanastock.org to get more information to take advantage of this. And again, we're seeing this all across the country in a number of states where folks are already lining up for what is going to be a multi-billion-dollar industry, and that is marijuana being legal in America. And so, again, so definitely go to marijuanastock.org, and that's one of our partners there as well. Again, folks, I said we're here at Ebenezer Baptist Church, and people have already started coming into the church. The lower level here is filling up as we see, and a lot of folks are going to be speaking, but also a lot of entertainment as well. And one of those folks, he's a Kappa. but I might as well let him on. Come on over here, Byron Cage. He's here. Man, how you doing? Looking all clean.
First of all, I'm
what is it the OK symbol? What is that?
You know what that is. Come on, brother. You know what that is. Yo, baby, yo.
That's that white supremacist.
Do it like this too. Which one? You want it this way? This way?
But you know what's supreme? God. You know Jesus was an alpha.
That's nothing. Look at you, man. Your fingers like they're deformed.
You know Jesus was an alpha.
No, he wasn't. He said he's alpha and omega. So he
got to be alpha first. And remember,
that is not spiritual. That's nothing spiritual.
Your fraternity don't even have a name without alpha.
The Lord, if he praised in this place, I'm not going to fool with you today. Roland Martin.
See, you know how black folks are. When they want to change something, they go to Jesus.
All right, that's it. That's what we learned in the church. Put him first in everything. You can't argue with God. Hallelujah.
Yes, Jesus was an alpha. So let's go. Why are you here?
Man, I am here to be part of history, man. It's just such a tumultuous time in our country right now with all of the negative things that are happening, all the murders and just the mass murders, even the ones that they don't really talk about on a national level, like the 2 people that lost their lives in Kentucky after Kroger. They're not talking about that, but they talked about the 2 that died with the yoga. And so my thing is this: I just want to just get the change that we need, especially in America, especially in the state of Georgia, which is why I voted for Stacey Abrams. I voted last week, and I stood in line because it is too important right now that we are able to exercise our right to not just to vote, but to live the way we want to live.
And of course, I said it earlier, more than 2 million early votes cast in the midterm 2014. It was 2.1 million cast in the midterm of 2014, just 900,000+.
Absolutely, and it's amazing, man, because we can, as a people of color especially, come out and we can make sure that change happens in our communities and in our states. And that's why I'm here at Ebenezer tonight. And it's really ironic. I was here when President Barack Obama was elected, when we were celebrating the voting portion of it, and when he actually sealed the deal. I was singing "Presence of the Lord is Here." I thought they were just screaming over the song. So I looked up at the screen. They said, "Congratulations, President Barack Obama." So to be here again, several years later for the Democratic ballot again, I am just so super hyped and charged to be a part of history. Let's pray we see history again.
All right. We're glad to see you, man. Thank you so very much. All right, then. We look forward to it.
Absolutely, brother.
All right. Thanks a bunch. All right. Remember, Alpha. Alpha. All right, folks. A couple of other people who are here, and they just walked in. Sorry. Come on over here, Jim Wallace.
Anybody in here?
Yes, they do. They let anybody. That's what I'm about to ask about you.
Well, when the Bible talks about spiritual warfare, that's what we're in right now. This is more than just politics. In fact, if racism is America's original sin, Donald Trump has become the chief tempter of the sin. You can repent sin or you can tempt it. And he's not running on issues, not running on his so-called successes. He's running on race.
Got to ask you, we just talked about it with my panel. Bobby Bowden, the other Trump rally, I guess it was last night or the day before yesterday, said when you put Trump and God together, that equals the majority.
Well, no, that equals a referendum on white nationalism. That's what we're facing. When Donald Trump says, I'm a nationalist, this is a referendum tomorrow on white nationalism. It's a referendum on America's original sin. And it's a referendum. And what does the Bible say? You know all this. It calls the devil the tempter, calls him a slanderer, an accuser, and the father of lies. Do those tactics sound familiar? We've got a political strategy of fear and hatred and lies and violence, and that's where he would take this nation. This is about more than the political issues you and I care about. This is really about the soul of the nation. Abraham Lincoln said clearly, leaders should appeal to our better angels. Donald Trump is appealing to our worst demons, and they're right below the surface.
Well put. Reverend Jim Wallace, always a pleasure. I appreciate it.
Good to see you, man. Always a blessing to see you.
All right. Eugene, I want to go start with you. Your thoughts about what Reverend Wallace just said, that, look, this is appeal to white nationalism, what Donald Trump is actually doing.
Yeah, I agree, and I agree 100% with you. I mean, the way he talks about, and he's been speaking about Abrams and Gillum, the way he has spoken about Barack Obama, being one of the chief and original birthers, the way he's spoken about, members of the Congressional Black Caucus, the way he's spoken about black athletes, the way he's spoken about, Hispanics and, folks that are undocumented immigrants. I mean, he has his entire shtick for the last 4 or so years. It's been white nationalism. It's been nothing white nationalism cutting through and through. So I agree 100% there.
Avis?
Absolutely. I mean, he said it himself, I'm a nationalist. And you don't need to go very far to fill in the blank. We know exactly what he's talking about, right? And really, if you look at these latest ads, for example, that he came out with, having this sort of Willie Horton style ad where you have this sort of Hispanic boogeyman who he wants to somehow extrapolate that that he is like all of these thousands of people that are, by the way, hundreds of miles away that are coming to try to seek asylum in this country. So he continues to sort of fan the flames of racism, fan the flames of hate, not only because he has gets a political advantage out of doing that, I believe, and he believes that he will, but also, quite frankly, because that is exactly who he is.
I'm going to go, Roland.
Looks like I lost Avis there.
Oh, no!
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I lost Avis there. Okay, Michael, go ahead.
Well, it's very profound what she said. If you missed it, you can listen later when you listen to the rebroadcast.
No. I heard most of it.
Oh, okay.
It dropped out the tail end, but go ahead.
I have nothing really to add what Eugene and Avis just said. I want to go back to the other segment, Roland. And what concerns me about the religious right is they talk about, well, we're going to swallow and hold our noses about some of the things related to this president. I'm sorry, number 45. I like to call him president. Number 45. But they make this decision about, because he's going to appoint good federal judges. What, Mike Pence would do that? And frankly, Mike Pence may be even further right and closer to the religious right than this president is. So I don't necessarily buy that. So which means they actually believe what he tweets. Mm-hmm. They believe what he says. Mm-hmm. And they're using the whole policy issue to hide behind it, because not sure whether Mike Pence would say the same things or tweet the same things or not. But you would get the same federal judges. Yeah, so I don't buy kind of their little theory on why they hold their nose to deal with this president.
Good point.
Sorry, 45.
Absolutely true.
All right, folks. So again, I heard nearly everything Michael said except the last 5 seconds. Let me do this here again, because Reverend Jim Wallace just walked in a few moments ago. We just talked to him, and then I'm looking for Reverend Dr. Barbara Skinner. And so, if you could ask Tanisha, I want Reverend Dr. Barbara Skinner. She also is here. She's also one of the folks who's organizing this. It is again. There she is, Tanisha. Tanisha. I need
this is the blackest show.
She walked in with Reverend Jim Wallace. Black coat, green dress. That's right. See, that's how you do it. See, I put folks to work. Look, okay? See, don't be just walking around here taking pictures. When I need somebody, dadgummit, go get them. And so we're going to chat with her in a second. Again, Derrick Johnson, of course, the president and CEO of the NAACP, is on his way. Reverend Dr. William Barber was supposed to be here, but there are some voting issues taking place in North Carolina that's going to keep him there. In fact, check this out, Avis. He sent me a photo of an early voting location that literally was a location of a building that had been destroyed.
What?
That was one of the official early voting locations listed in North Carolina.
That is so disturbing. My father's from North Carolina. I literally grew up like 2 miles from the North Carolina line. And so in many ways, I almost feel like North Carolina is my home. And what North Carolina has evolved into in recent years, ever since the Republicans took over both the governorship and the legislature down there, is completely different than the North Carolina I remember. It's taken us back more than 20 years. I would argue it's taken us back at least 50 years. And so, in terms of what you just described, that's straight up Jim Crow playbook. And so it's very disappointing to see that even though North Carolina has begun to sort of turn it around with the Democratic governor, and the bottom line is there's more work to do. there's still a lot more work to do to make sure that that state is on the right side of history and moves forward in a way that protects people's vote instead of trying to take it away.
All right, speaking of somebody who's actually working, hey, he worked a little bit. Of course, you know, teaching at Morgan State, also writing for The Root. Jason Johnson, what's up?
I'm working, man. I'm working. I just got here from Florida this morning. I'm going to be here till Thursday to see this till the end, although I don't think it's going to end tomorrow. So it'll be a lot. Tomorrow's going to be an interesting day.
So we say don't think it's going to end tomorrow. They're running neck and neck, but if you don't get 50 plus 1%, it requires a runoff, which will be December 4th.
Yes, yeah. The most surprising result tomorrow would be if Brian Kemp won. Like, if he wins tomorrow, then we know this is all just shenanigans. I think most likely it's going to be a 49-8 to a 49-2. We're going to have a runoff. You're going to have darn near UN observers are going to have to be here to see that that's actually administered properly. And then I think there's a slight chance that Abrams might just pull it out. We were really surprised with what happened during the primary. I mean, she was supposed to win the primary by 8 points.
Oh, she destroyed homegirl.
She beat that white woman down in public. I thought she was going to jail. Like, I don't think you could do that. So there is a possibility that maybe the polls are wrong, but most likely I think we get a runoff.
I read this earlier. Early voting in 2014 here was about 940 or 970,000, something like that. This year, 2.1 million. That is huge.
Yes. Not only that, last week it was 640,000 first-time early voters. First-time early, like people who had never voted before. Those aren't Brian Kemp people. Like that's the New Georgia Project. That's what they've been working on for years. So, no, you can't guarantee that all those people are Abrams supporters, but 3/4 of those people have to be people who were approached by the Democratic Party, approached by the Abrams campaign. So they're in very, very good shape. And her whole strategy all along has been they can't cheat if it's not close. So if she can win 52 to 48, I still think Brian Kemp's going to fight it. I still think he's going to try some third world banana republic nonsense to stop her. But a bigger lead means she might be able to end it tomorrow.
Jason Johnson, always good to see you, man. Thanks a bunch. Eugene, I want to go to you. I was in Florida. As I said earlier, you had about 344,000 black folks who voted early in the 2014 midterms. Yesterday, it was the Democratic Party sent an email out. It was about 475,000, and that's not even counting souls to the polls on yesterday. Harris County, they had 900-some-odd thousand people who voted in the entire midterm in 2014. That's an entire midterm election. Early voting exceeded 1 million in Harris County. If you're Beto O'Rourke, you like to hear those numbers. If you're Andrew Gillum and Bill Nelson, you like to hear more than 500,000 black folks voting in Florida.
Absolutely, 100%. Absolutely, 100%. I'm a supporter of Beto, and I'm a supporter of Andrew and also Stacey Abrams. For me, the line is crossed. I'm a Republican, but the line is crossed when it comes to racism. When you dabble in racism, you lose me as a Republican. I'm a black man first above everything. But the history of it is this. Since we black folk have gotten the right to vote, when we vote, things change. When we vote, we end up saving the country, many times over. And that's what you're probably going to see tomorrow. You'll see, with Florida and saving, Florida from a disastrous Ron DeSantis administration. And if Brian Kemp is doing this as Secretary of State, imagine what he would do as governor. And listen, we all know that, Ted Cruz is hot effing trash. So, I am excited to see what happens with Beto tomorrow.
What do you really think?
And again, Michael, those are huge numbers, Michael.
They are, and it's impressive. The whole get out the vote strategy has been great in all three of those states. Roland, I want to commend Eugene, because you and I have been on millions of shows where we sit with black Republicans, and there's nothing wrong with being a black Republican. That's what you choose to be. More power to you. But I wish more black Republicans would say what Eugene just said, because that's important, because he made a statement about being African American and having some values. Some of these African American Republicans that come on just say the party line. It doesn't matter what is said, what's tweeted. They're just on the boat. They've had the Kool-Aid. So, Eugene, I want to commend you for that. Very, very proud of you. That was very nice.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Avis, final comment from you.
It is, we are just at a point right now where we can make the huge difference that corrects the ship of this nation tomorrow. When we vote as a block, we can change things. And so I am a big believer in the power of what Stacey Abrams is doing in Georgia. She's been doing this work for years in terms of protecting people's vote. And no matter what sort of shenanigans they try to throw in there at the last minute, I believe that we are ready for this moment, and we're going to come back stronger and harder than anyone ever predicted.
Get out and vote tomorrow. Get out and vote.
All right, right now I want to bring in Reverend Dr. Barbara Skinner. Step right in, please. Obviously, we are here in the church. Obviously, churches have played a huge role. Yesterday, I was in Florida, in Gainesville. Hit about 7 churches yesterday morning, and it's all about being sold to the polls in those places that are still allowed to vote on Sunday, because Republicans have cut that in a lot of places.
Yes, they have, because they're afraid of what will happen. When African Americans do what we did in 2012, we exceeded the white turnout. We have the ability to make history tomorrow, to crash on cut bigotry, racism, hate. More than that, we've got to start holding these elected officials accountable. We can't tell black people, and especially young people, to go to the polls, and then you sit there and they don't do incarceration right. They don't do justice. They don't do housing. They don't do health care. That's on us. So we got 2 jobs to do. One is get there to the polls and vote. Then secondly, go see those elected officials and hold them accountable with a report card, mid-year report card. Blast it out. Put it on Facebook, how they're doing after the election.
All right. Doc, always good seeing you. Look forward to the event. Thanks so much. I appreciate it. Again, folks, we are about to start here, and so we have been working on it. Where is she? Where's Angie? Okay, so here's the deal, folks. Angie Stone's one of the folks who's performing. B.B. Wine's one of the folks who's performing. And again, a number of other folks are going to be speaking. We're going to be live streaming this on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Again, thank you to Eugene, Michael, and Avis. Thank you so very much back in D.C. Folks, don't forget, we're not going to be live tomorrow at 6 p.m. We're going to have a special time, 8 p.m. to 1 a.m. We're going to be giving you election results. I'll be back in Washington, D.C., and so we look forward to that. Over the next 24 hours, though, you're going to see, obviously, this show. We're going to be restreaming this. Also, the interviews that I have done with Erica Alexander, Erica Ashe, Chuck D., Congresswoman Maxine Waters, Dr. Jim Lawson, Jalal Haneo, Devon Franklin, Lisa Ray. We're going to have all of those interviews live. We're going to be streaming those interviews as well. We're going to be pushing out voter messages constantly between now and the polls closing, not just on the East Coast, Central Time, but also on the West Coast. And so, again, no complaints, folks. We want you also, the Lawyers Committee, be sure, you got any voting irregularities, please be sure to call their vote line as well, because we want to make sure that there are no shenanigans happening tomorrow across the country. Again, we're here at Ebenezer Baptist Church. Look for our live stream of this rally as well. Thank you so very much for joining us. Don't forget to support Roland Martin Unfiltered by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com, joining our fan club, Bring the Funk fan club. We look forward to that. All right, folks, y'all have a great evening. I'll be back in a moment from Ebenezer. Y'all take care. Holla.